Hey guys, about maybe a month ago, I was at a friend's house. It was Ramadan, so we were breaking our fast together. And the topic of preserving culture came up. And this is a conversation I've been a part of. I can't even count how many times, whether it's my own Circassian, family and friends, or Arab friends, or Indian Pakistani friends, or Chinese, or Korean, or the list goes on, right? Every group, that has immigrated here, they feel this sense of loss or fear of loss that causes them to want to make sure the next generation picks up the language, picks up the culture, really is able to relate to back home. So as we were chatting, I realized something. I'm like, this same conversation we're having, if it was being had by white Christian Americans, we would have a very different response to it, right? We would be accusing that group of being like white nationalists, racists, all sorts of things, right? And for a good reason, right? I mean, this land is founded by white Europeans, by Christian Europeans. And so the culture of this land is really closely intertwined with white European Christian culture. But that's changing. And what we're seeing is there's this big demographic shift, right? In places like California, white people are no longer the majority. It's already happening, right? There are projections that by 2050, there aren't going to really be majorities in this country. There's just going to be a bunch of minorities kind of living and interacting with one another. White Christian culture will not be the dominant form of culture. And so does it still make sense that they can't have those same kind of conversations that we minorities, we immigrants have about preserving our culture? I don't mean to be an apologist for extremists. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm really want to try to have a sincere discussion. I laughed it off when I made that comment. I just thought it was funny and amusing. But there is a deeper truth there. We immigrants, when we come to this country, there's a dramatic shift in culture that's a shock to people. And so there's this natural reaction to preserve it, to keep things the way they were remembered. And, that's one thing when you choose to leave your country and go to another. But what happens when your country around you, the place that you and your parents and your grandparents, your great-grandparents for generations, it's changing and more rapidly than you ever could have imagined. And now you feel like a stranger in your own country. That's a very scary thing. And so a lot of the conflict we have in society right now, there's like an economic, financial component to it, and then there's this cultural component, right? And both problems need to be addressed. And, I think we're somewhat aware of the economic issues, but I don't think we're as aware of the cultural shift. As society becomes more and more liberal, there's this desire to create a homogeneous liberal culture in this country. And in a country that's so diverse, I don't know if that's possible. I think there has to be another way. And does that other way include a space for white Christians or people of white European descent to celebrate their culture, to enjoy their culture, to share it with others without there being the stigma of prejudice and racism surrounding it? Because if they aren't given that space, then that will be the only direction they can go. And is that something we want as a culture, as a society? And is it fair? I know I'm starting to feel bit guilty about this. Like, I can have these conversations as a Muslim, as a Circassian, as somebody whose family came from another country, but my friends who've been here for generations, they can't have this conversation. And not everybody wants to. But there is going to be a segment of the population that is interested in a part of society. Their culture has been preserved and celebrated and respected. And that's not such a bad thing, at least in my opinion. And so that's why I'm kind of putting this out there. I want to hear what other people think. Am I crazy? Am I just opening up this Pandora's box? Or is there something to this? I'm really looking forward to what you have to say. Thanks for listening. All right, bye.